All right, welcome everybody to the Canadian Society for Organic Urban Land Care, SOUL, National Weekly Zoom Series 2022 Year of the Ecological Garden. My name's Sandora Alford-Purvis, and I'm hosting today from Ottawa, Ontario, which is on the unceded lands of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. We meet every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, for 45 minutes with members of the SOUL community and anyone else interested in holistic approaches to land care. We can't do our work alone, and we gratefully acknowledge support from Gaia College, the leading school for organic land care professional development and diploma courses. SOUL's membership includes accredited professionals, and we also welcome public memberships, members who wish to support ecological and holistic land care. If you're not a member, please do consider joining. Every month we feature a theme that impacts our work, and this month we're on the theme of urban biodiversity. We will continue with some of that next month as well. And today, Jeanne McRight, the president of Blooming Boulevards, is our guest, and she'll be talking about working with your municipality and other partners to create programs like Blooming Boulevards in your community. After her presentation, we will open it up to audience to questions. You can either put them in the chat, which I'll read out, or you can unmute and ask your questions directly. But please save all that for the end. You can put them in the chat, but please remain muted through the presentation. All right, thanks very much. And please take it away, Jeanne.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's delightful to be here and to meet a whole bunch of new people. Hello, SOUL. I'm Jeanne McRight. I am the founding president of Blooming Boulevards, and I'm going to tell you a bit about our organization. There's going to be time for questions. So we started in 2019, I think what I'll do is just start the slideshow, and I will be talking to you while I share my screen. Okay. So let's, here we go. So this is 2019. This is at the North American Native Plant Society plant sale. We had just freshly been very successful going to council and getting our bylaw changed. We did that several years previous. When somebody complained about our my boulevard garden, I took a deputation to council. It was terrifying. Mississauga has a gigantic council chamber with 15 or 16 councillors, and the mayor is sitting there. And I'm standing there unfamiliar with PC computers. I have a Mac, trying to figure it out and doing my PowerPoint. But they give you 10 minutes to make your case. And I had done my homework. I wanted to make it be that the bylaw was amended so that people in Mississauga could grow something other than municipally planted grass on municipal property right outside their house. In many cases, this is the boulevard between the sidewalk and road, but also it's any time that there's a road allowance that cuts into your own front yard. So after my 10-minute tremulous voice presentation, and by the way, we were all wearing antennas, just like you're seeing me in the picture. The councillors all clapped and the mayor stood up and said, "This is a solution looking for a solution." And then 6 months later, everybody in Mississauga was able to have a very reasonable permit for a reasonable, very low cost, and which is now waived for pollinator gardens. And away we went. Okay, so then we decided that we were going to form an organization, a not-for-profit organization called it Blooming Boulevards. And of course, we're doing much more than boulevards now. But the organization has a board of directors, a great board of directors. It's really a wonderful group of people that are dedicated and work hard, an enormous eager volunteer base, and we have a monthly newsletter. We have make good use of social media, and so we are able to network like crazy and spread the word that way. Okay, and we also recruit Boulevard Garden stewards through outreach events, and of course this was 2019, so COVID hit in spring of 2020. And March, I think it was 2020, we had to cancel 15 of our outreach events, as so many clubs and organizations had to do. So we learned how to work online. And every year since then, I have done between 20 and 30 online presentations and webinars, and that really helps. So this is how we're doing it. We're spreading the word. We're recruiting people to sign up for Boulevard Gardens, and then we are growing plants. Okay, so I'm going to show you all about that. Welcome to Blooming Boulevards. So what we do is raise awareness. Of course, we provide help for people who want to make gardens, and we teach the skills and how to do that, and we grow native plants. More than anything, we create pollinator habitats. Well, actually, they're wildlife habitats, and we are all about connection. So we connect neighborhoods to nature. Right up close and personal. Nobody has to get in their car and drive. The pageant of nature is right there at the end of your driveway. Okay, and why do we do this? Is because, as you know, I know I'm speaking to the converted here, is that biodiversity in Ontario is at risk. It's not just limited to Ontario, but here's some of the facts. The numbers for Southern Ontario, and what we're most interested in as far as our contribution is the 98% loss of grasslands, because this is where the flowering herbaceous perennials are that the pollinating insects need in order for their populations to thrive. Okay, 98% loss of the grasslands. The reason is not just climate change, but also human practices. So this would be agricultural practices, results in habitat loss, and urban intensification results in habitat loss. So this is an urgent situation, particularly here on where we are located in Mississauga, and all along Ottawa is part of this too, the Great Lakes system, is that the bees and other wildlife, all of this ecological community is going to want to be, it is in the process of moving north as climate warming happens. So what the lake is in the way, you have to go around the lake in one way or another, or over the lake. And then what do they find? They find a large chain of cities that are getting bigger and bigger and more covered with concrete. Okay, so we need to do something in cities that address this issue. And of course, studies have been made so that cities are shown, city gardens, urban gardens, residential gardens are good places for pollinating insects and insects in generalized wildlife to make their homes. Okay, but we have to provide them with the right kind of plants that are high in the nutrients that they need. So this is Mississauga in 2014. Okay, and you can see that there's an awful lot of rooftops and paving here. But what if all of these buildings, or the majority of the buildings, had rooftop gardens on top of them? And what if interspersed amongst the pavings and the boulevards, rather than ornamental plants and grasses, that there were habitat links consisting of native plant gardens? Okay, so that will make a huge difference. And that's what Mrs. Blooming Boulevards is all about. So where are the bees? Okay, they're isolated by not only habitat loss, it's shrinking habitat areas, but also it's all chopped up. Okay, this is called fragmentation. So the bees here in Riverwood Park, okay, is stuck in the park. It's stuck in this one little area, okay? But we can help reconnect them by making lots and lots of habitat gardens all over the city, okay? So that they can get around and populations can reach each other, interbreed, and therefore their genetic, their adaptive ability is strengthened. They become more resilient to other stress factors like climate change. So we're buying time by doing things like this, by growing native habitat gardens. Okay, this happens to be my boulevard garden, the one that caused all the problems in the first place a few years ago. Okay, and so my garden's about 15 years old at this point. It didn't always look like this, full of native plants. I started out with xeriscape gardens that was drought proof, and I just moved my daylilies and my irises and my other dry loving plants over to the boulevard. Okay, but after I found out about native plants, I transitioned the garden into a mostly native plant garden. You can see the sedum in the front. Okay, I still have a few hangers on, but this is it. So we use these plants as try and create gardens like this for other people too. And we do this by growing our own plants. Okay, so sustainability is no longer about doing less harm, it's about doing more good. And one of the ways that our approaches is to think like a pollinator. So when we plant our gardens, we try and think about all of the wildlife that lives there, but also the fact that the insects aren't just living there for a short period of time. They're spending their lives in this one small area. And of course, native bees, the majority of native bees have very limited ranges. Some are only of less than 300 meters and some are only 100 meters, where they have to do all of their foraging and their nesting in that one little area. Okay, so you want to provide as many services as possible when you're making a native plant garden. Okay, and also in the city, you'll find a lot of soil damage. So native plants have offer many more services to municipalities than just offering services to wildlife. Of course, they are very good at remediating the soil, at controlling runoff, at traffic calming, at addressing urban heat island issues, at reducing the amount of CO2 that comes from mowing, gas-powered lawn maintenance equipment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, many, many benefits. So for example, the reduction of runoff, the reduced need for water, the elimination of the use of chemicals, or a lot of this has to do with how thrifty the deep roots are in many native prairie and meadow species. So you can see the comparison of turf grass on the far left with a red arrow, and that's where its roots occupy, is just a low, very small area underneath the soil, compared to the purple coneflower, for example. You can see that, and you can see the cinquefoil, the variety, the goldenrods, and the different grasses, the evening primrose, okay, and it sits up, all kinds of different common native plants that you can see. The roots can go down to 2, 3, sometimes even more further down there under the soil. And what these roots do is they will die, rot, add their organic contribution to the soil and help the soil microorganisms maintain their health and diversity. They also are conduits for other nutrients to go down deeper into the soil. They help make channels in the soil so that water can penetrate, and air. Okay, so this is what you need. They're far superior to lawn. And when you're designing your garden, I mean, this is what we keep in mind when we recommend plants, and we go to do site visits and we look at people's gardens and we help people understand that they need to design their gardens according to sites, growing conditions, and functional needs. So the function includes support for wildlife, and not just ornamental. Of course, they are beautiful, but there are a lot more things that a garden does than just look pretty. Okay, and so and then rather than dumping fertilizers on low nutrient soil, or trying to change the pH, or doing something that, or watering all the time, what you do is just simply choose a plant for the conditions that you have, and there is something for everything. Okay, so what we do is we round up volunteers for our different activities. We do this to keep people engaged. We need to help people feel a sense of reward for hands-on activities. And that way, people feel like they're accomplishing something. People want to do something. People who are concerned about the environment and what's going on with our biodiversity crisis want to do something. It's much better than just sticking $100 bill in an envelope and sending it off. Okay, instead you're out in the field learning how to collect seeds, growing native plants, giving them, donating them to others so that they can make pollinator gardens or habitat gardens to help improve the ecology. Okay, and it is a win-win situation. It has immediate rewards and long-term promise. Okay, so that's our strategy, is to do something up close and personal, something hands-on, something relevant that everyone, young, old, no matter what your cultural background, is able to participate in. So we source seeds locally. Of course, these seeds are from plants that are adapted to our own local conditions. And I know that your conditions in Ottawa are very much different than ours in Port Credit, where I live, in South Mississauga, south, particularly further on toward the west around Lake Erie. Okay, we have entirely different species. The ecoregion is conditions, the soils are different. The bloom time is different, and therefore the needs of the insects are also different. The phenology, the timing of the wake up of the bees and the blooming of the flowers all has to be in sync, or else you're not going to get your flowers pollinated and your bees are going to go hungry. Okay, so local seeds are used to propagate our own plants. This is my little granddaughter. She knows the names of all the plants. Okay, and she knows how to take care of them. She was 8 at the time that this photograph was taken. Okay, and volunteers pitch in to help. This summer, we've had 30 people help to grow our plants. They're growing them in their spare rooms or in their kitchens or in their basements. We buy the equipment from our grant and from our grant funds, and then we loan the equipment out to our plant propagators. Okay, and that's very rewarding. We have varying degrees of success, but everybody pretty much enjoys the process. You suffer, of course, if your plants aren't doing well, but then you come back and you learn some more. So everybody helps each other out, and I do all their training online. Of course, this was COVID, so we did it all on Zoom. And then we distribute the plants everywhere as widely into the community as we possibly can. So this is the Bradley House Museum. We are able to help out the city of Mississauga, Parks and Forestry, and donating plants for projects there. We do not yet are we a charitable, have our charitable status, but we can partner with charitable organizations and do projects like this. Okay, and so we connect with local businesses and we provide plants. This is along the lake shore, and this again in Port Credit, between Toronto and Hamilton. Okay, so it's just right outside of down south in Port Credit on the lake shore, and a great big garden that's right there in the parking lot of a complex of lawyers and other shops. Okay, and it'll look like the picture on the upper left. That's our Ward 1 Councillor Stephen Dasco holding the tray of plants on the left, and the rest of our Blooming Boulevard folks and our the lawyer whose property it is holding plants. So we all were together in a great big group of volunteers came to put in the plants. And this is what it looked like by the end of the summer. This is the look of a first-year garden. Okay, so very beautiful, much better than that bare empty spot that you saw. Okay, all very high profile. So this is a garden in Clarkson near Port Credit. It started out by raised beds with lily of the valley, and of course lily of the valley is invasive, but not worse than that. This these raised beds were right at arm reach for babies and toddlers being wheeled by in strollers or being walked, by their folks along the sidewalk. And the red sweet berries of lily of the valley, 2 berries can kill a child. I don't know who planted the lily of the valley there. And of course it's green, the flowers are lovely and they smell very good, but it is not a good plant to plant along the sidewalk, along a public street. Okay, so it took 3 applications of Roundup glyphosate to kill the lily of the valley. Couldn't be dug out because of the roots of the trees. And then once the lily of the valley was dead, we planted native plants in this area. So very beautiful and a great project. And then people painted all the edges, murals along the outside. So it became a multimedia experience for the people in Clarkson. Really great. And anybody driving down the street. So we connect locally. We go to the farmers market. We set up booths and tables and any other opportunity that we have. We try and take advantage of just to get the word out, talk to people, spread our brochures, sign up members, and try and recruit more garden stewards. We also, after our garden program in April through the end of May and into June, what we do is we have a big annual native plant sale. Okay, and we usually have between 2,000 and 3,000 plants to sell. We've been using driveways. Of course, this was COVID, and so we had to be crowd control and space people out. You could see people lining up on the sidewalk. Everybody brings their own boxes, and this is our major fundraiser. We make thousands and thousands of dollars on our plant sale. Okay, selling them at either $2 or $3 each. So that's how many plants we have, really a lot. And anybody that has a garden that needs extra plants can come to plant sale and buy more. Okay, so we grow enough plants. This year we grew 8,000 plants, so we're able to provide plants for up to 100 gardens every year. We've never actually hit our target of 100. Last year it was 80. This year is close to 80. And, but we're trying as the word spreads. We started in 2019 with 13 gardens. So we've been building and building. Okay, so there's Eva's garden, this tiny little piece of land. And then Samia and Mahmoud at the right decided that they were going to share their strip between their 2 adjoining houses and put a garden there. And so there we have all kinds of configurations. And our rule is that we want the gardens to be close to the street where everyone can see them. We want them to be accessible. We want them to make the case for educating people about the beauty and the interest and the value of native plant habitat gardens. Okay, and here's David's family garden. There, all the children got involved, and they were really absolutely charming kids. They were reading the brochure and looking at the pictures, and so this garden's doing very well. Okay, and Jitendra's whole entire family planted this garden. We dropped the plants off. There were 6 people of all ages, grannies and young children, were putting in the plants. And this is the garden when it's 2 years old. The first year you could see Jitendra up there with his garden that first year. In the second year, it's lush, it's beautiful, it's filled in. And the great thing is that this garden is on a wide and windy major road. It's called Britannia Road here in Mississauga. Very wide road. Okay. It's even hard to cross the street. But what's happened is the houses all up and down have big, wide, mowed grass gardens. Everybody loved Jitendra's garden. Okay, so you walk past, the sidewalk is on Jitendra's side, and Jitendra tended his garden. He was always out there discovering insects and taking pictures. He was so enthusiastic that 8 of his neighbors put in gardens too. So now what has happened all along this road is that parks have been linked. That he's created a flyway, a whole entire linkage system, a network where the pollinating insects can go from one green patch to another. Okay, and this is going to really, it's not just the garden now there's a network. Okay, and this makes a huge difference in the biodiversity and survivability of these bee populations. Not only that, but there's a middle school right across the street. So they were inspired by the garden and formed an eco club. The staff got it in very involved, and the school has pollinator gardens all along the front of the school now. So this is what's happening, okay? This is what's happening, is that people are inspiring others. They're telling their neighbors are getting on board, and it's really taking off. Okay, and interestingly, it was all happening while the virus was spreading. So our gardens were spreading along with the virus. So something good along with something bad, okay? Trying to balance things out. So after people are able to install their gardens and care for them that first year, okay, they do need weeding, they do need watering, then they are rewarded by the gardens filling in the second and third year. So this is the look of a second and third year garden, okay? And a little patch in the corner or a whole big area, and they whatever you have, whatever space you have, you keep it going. You can expand it, and it will always be changing and very interesting. And so we set up a private Facebook group. Oh, it looks like I cut off a word in the caption there, sorry. In our private Facebook group, it should say. And our stewards can join that private Facebook group. We've got about 210 gardens now. So half of those people who have those gardens now are chiming in and sharing photos and tips in the private Facebook group. Now, I know that not everybody likes Facebook or wants to use it, but those who do, it is serving them well. Okay, so that's a way that people can connect as well. Okay, so here's the Applewood United Church. We do church gardens and school gardens. We don't do them. We provide the plants for them and all the advice and support that they need. Okay, so neighborhood groups are getting involved as well. Okay, and parks and forestry, again, they are starting to put in pollinator gardens in their city parks, and we are helping provide plants for that. Different other ecological organizations, including our local food security organization called EcoSource here in Mississauga, is also installing pollinator gardens, and Blooming Boulevards is helping out with those installations. So our partnerships are very important to us as well. Okay, so what we're trying now is that we are campaigning for Municipal Greenhouse so that the different organizations can work cooperatively, use the greenhouse as a facility for growing more plants. And we are, our project, our goal for the next 3 years, we just completed a strategic plan, a new strategic plan for the next 3 years, is growth. Okay, and to work on, expand the scale of our project, expand the scope of what we do. We want to do more, okay? The need is so urgent that we are doing all our very best to try and do more and maximize our services. Okay, so that's it for Blooming Boulevards. We provide beauty and biodiversity all year round, very important. And if you would like to help, you can become a member. If you're in Mississauga and you're a member, you can apply for a boulevard garden. I do workshops, and the workshops are free if you take one hosted by Blooming Boulevards. We have a website, and the list of workshops is on the website. All of our workshops for 2022 are now complete, but there's going to be a whole new roster for 2023. If you are in our area, you can volunteer. And of course, everyone is welcome to donate. Your donations are immediately turned into plants or things that support plants like potting soil, soilless mix, and seeds. Although we do collect most of our seeds, we have to purchase others. okay, trays and all those things that we need money for. So donations, please do donate if you have a few dollars you could spare. Okay, so there's our website. It's bloomingboulevards.org. Come and visit our website, drop in. There's a contact there. You're welcome to email me, and I am very good about replying. Okay, and now I'm happy to answer any questions that people might have.
All
Okay.
right.
So,
Thank you very much. That was awesome. I haven't been involved in community sort of based projects before. I am just bowled over by what you've managed to accomplish and how quickly you've managed to grow it. And actually, you've obviously been problem solving on the fly and managing the growth. And it's a really impressive work that you've done there in the last, because it hasn't been that many years, has it? When did
no, this is our 4th year. We were
Yeah.
4, and we were starting into our 4th year in May. So we were 3 in May, and so this is our 4th year. We're not 4 yet. We'll be 4 next May.
Yeah, no, very impressive to have 210 gardens already, and all those plants you're growing, and the seeds sourcing sorted, and all of the growing out. I'm really impressed. We do have a question from Annie in the chat. It's we are in the process of planning for establishing blooming boulevards in Quebec, but have issues with snow removal machinery creating lots of damage to soil and plants. Have you come across this issue, and how do you deal with it?
Yes, snow removal. I mean, we have Mississauga, of course. We don't have as much snow as there is in Quebec, but still you've got the sidewalk plows, which come out at first opportunity and salt galore. Okay, and wherever the sidewalk plow has scraped up the turf on either side, now is covered in ragweed. Okay, so it's really a terrible thing. Okay, so when we put in our boulevard gardens, what we always do is we make a border. We can't have anything hanging over the sidewalk anyway. So things are planted within about 18 inches, about, 45 centimeters or so, away from the edge. And that usually, the plow it will miss that. If you get salt, drought, salt tolerant plants, and there's many available, then they will be able to handle the salt very well. Okay, so that's not going to be an issue. It's but the mechanical damage from the plow is definitely an issue if you plant too close to where the plow is going.
Yeah. I think I've actually seen lists of salt resistant plants on the Blooming Boulevards website. Yeah,
that's right.
So there is a resource to go for looking and look up those ones that have to survive that strip where, frankly, if turf doesn't grow there, so you might as well be planting something that will support the pollinators. Yeah, and actually on the topic of sort of the soil disturbance and that, do you ever, I'm just curious what you give for advice for how people prepare the planting areas in boulevards and things like that?
Yes, and that can be found in some of the resources on our website as well. So what you do again is first of all, you have to determine how compacted your soil is. Okay. Usually you don't need to apply fertilizers, and what you really should not do, because it benefits the weeds, it doesn't do anything for the native plants, is put topsoil there. Okay. Instead, what you want to add compost. Okay. Any organic material that can open up the soil. Because quite often out by the street where people are walking, or, by the roadside, the soil is compacted. The organic material, the compost, will also provide slow release nutrients. That's all the plants need. And then choose native plants that are appropriate for your lighting condition. But you want to work the compost in 3 to 4 inches of compost and into the top 3 to 4 inches of soil. And I'm not a proponent of digging, because that messes up the soil structure and soil organisms. Instead, after that first application of compost, loosening up the soil, and actually put a fork in there and rock it back and forth if it's rock hard, like some soils are. And of course, need I say this, is that you've got to get rid of all of the herbaceous material that's already existing. Okay, and that can mean smothering if you're working in advance, or it means stripping off that material, the top inch. So you're just slicing through those roots. Don't wait until the droughty summer when the ground is rock hard. Do it in the spring when things are soft and you can do it. Sometimes neighbors get together and rent sod strippers for that.
Yeah, get a whole community party going on.
Yeah.
Do you have height restrictions? Did the municipality restrict plant heights, I assume, for?
Yeah, and that they're reasonable restrictions when you consider that people are backing out of driveways, and you have to make sure that you're not running over anybody's children when you're trying to navigate past the garden. So it's a meter.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty generous. Yeah.
A meter is fine. You're sitting in your car and looking out the window and you can see over something. That's a meter. Okay. And what it's different. It's though, if you've got a tree or a hydrant or some other type of infrastructure object, it usually most municipalities want you to keep the vegetation lower than a meter, like 20 centimeters, right within an area around. In Mississauga, it's a meter out from the tree trunk, and you may not plant anything a meter out from the tree trunk in diameter. Okay, around a fire hydrant or something like that, it's vegetation has to be 20 centimeters, and I think it's a half a meter out. Okay, a meter in circumference, diameter. Okay, so then anyway, yes, pay attention to your municipal, bylaw and your regulations.
Yeah, because Ottawa, there's some work going on by various people and groups to try to get the bylaw revised, and there's a counselor on board, so hopefully, and then the staff's working on it. But yeah, I know that those questions of those practical things like sight lines and access to infrastructure and all that, those are all the things the cities actually and municipalities are actually worried about. And then as long as they can come up with good sort of, these are the guidelines, so everybody knows, then it cuts down on all these conflicts with bylaw officers in the city and everything. And you mentioned that there was a permit process. So people do need to do an application to get permission to do the boulevard planting?
Yes. So the way our organization, if you've got an organization, we enlist, we have a place where people need to apply, make an application for the garden. Okay, but that's not the city. That doesn't give up the go ahead from the city. That's just so that we know who they are. Okay. Part of the application process is we go visit the sites for people who are interested in gardens. We do site visits so we can take a look at the site, the growing conditions. We bring the paperwork from the city with us, and then we help people fill out the city permit. You don't need Blooming Boulevards in Mississauga in order to have a boulevard garden. What you do need is to go to the Mississauga website. You can find this from where you are. Google Boulevard Gardens. You can get the application, download it, fill it out. It's very important to do cross the T's and dot the I's. Okay. I say dot the T's and cross the I's. Sign it where it needs to be signed, because they'll send it back to you, and then it'll take forever. And go through all the requirements needed. You'll need a sketch. You can do the sketch. Okay, so before they changed the bylaw, you had to hire somebody to do the sketch, a professional surveyor. Okay, now you can do the sketch, do your measurements. Okay, and there is an approved plant list in Mississauga. So on the approved plant list are native plants that are appropriate in terms of height and salt tolerance, etc., for the city boulevards. Okay, so you've got to use those plants, and you are not allowed to use anything else. And that's the process in Mississauga.
Yeah, it sounds like they've been pretty sensible about it. Sometimes you do get
Yes.
into some rather odd requirements that actually end up making it just a non-starter. I'm curious, how big is your organization? How many sort of, not necessarily the people who have individual gardens that they're responsible for, but the core group that actually does the advice and does the coordinating, meets with people who are looking at doing
So
gardens?
that's our board of directors, and
Mhm.
have a board of directors over the past few years that have changed its composition, as most volunteer organizations do. Okay,
Mhm.
but we have always been between 7 and 9 directors. Right now we have 8.
Mhm.
And so we have a president, we have a treasurer, we have a secretary. We don't have a VP. Okay. And we have also retired directors. We have people who are advisors that work with us on a regular basis, and we have some volunteers that we are very good about taking responsibilities when there are big projects to do that we can rely on again and again. And then we have a whole way of recruiting volunteers, and we try to save those volunteers and get them to come back so that they can mentor other new volunteers. So we're doing this sort of like hierarchy building. And
Mhm.
I'm glad you asked that question, because really it's been quite a challenge to try and manage our volunteers because of COVID, right? And so we couldn't do in-person things, and we couldn't have in-person meetings, and it all had to be done online. So nobody was terribly happy with that, but we managed.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
it was definitely quite a transition for everyone. Suddenly, a lot of the fun aspects of having the gatherings where there's the social, and it became one more thing to do in front of the computer.
But
Yeah.
we do have people who are our away team, for example, that go do the display tables and the outreach.
Mhm.
We have a garden committee with the same people. It's a relatively fluid. We have another group of people who are terrific managers and handlers of data that help us distribute our plants to the gardens. Because we've got 8,000 plants that have to be matched up to 100
Yeah.
gardeners.
And they
Each
all
of
need
them getting
labels.
50 each. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. No, we've
Yeah.
got a good system now, but it was not an easy process. It was a learning curve. Let's put it that
Oh yeah, no, I can believe it. That's the thing. That's why I sort of sit back in awe at all of the things you've accomplished, because having done some stuff, I have a good idea of just the incredible amount of work and motivation that has to have gone into the last 4 years to accomplish
way.
what you've accomplished.
Well,
So
I'm happy, if anybody wants to email me, and happy to share information with anybody with specific questions, how do you do this? Or, please don't just email me and say, tell me everything about Blooming Boulevards, because I can't
it's
do
like,
that.
check out the website, watch the talk.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, because I'm sure it's quite the story. All right, so we don't have any other questions in the chat right now, and we are at 3:45. So thank you so much for coming. Yeah, it's amazing how much of an impact it can be accomplished when you sort of everybody's working towards things.
That's right.
Yeah, and as I mentioned there about recording, so for everybody's here, this is recorded, and we are going to be sharing the link to this to everybody who registered. And of course, it's going to be on public website, and YouTube, and on the SOL website. So if you know somebody who's starting a Blooming Boulevard, or wants to start a similar organization, send them the link, start some encouragement. So do please go ahead and share this widely. And also please join us again next week when Luke Jeffries will be giving a presentation on the work of the Kahnataki Seed Sanctuary and Learning Center, which is an Indigenous seed saving and learning center here in Ontario, in the Tyendinaga region. And they've done some really amazing things with heritage seed and restoring local food crops. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you so much, Jeanne, both for this and for all of the amazing work that you and the Blooming Boulevards team has accomplished. It's really inspiring for everybody who wants to do similar things in communities all over.
Yeah. Take care, everybody.
Thanks. Hi.